one weekend you actually took the kids away because I just wasn't coping with like being overwhelmed. I just wasn't coping. I was just dealing with the situation so poorly.
Hello and welcome back to Honey We Need to Chat.
Welcome back.
Were you going to say something?
I was.
Yeah, I knew it. Welcome back to Honey We Need to Chat. I'm Amy and this is my husband, Blair.
Hi.
And we are a podcast that believes that when communication dies, bad things happen. So we're all about communication in relationships. Mm-hmm. And today is a really special episode because
1 year, baby.
1 year of Honey We Need to Chat. Yeah. There we go. On the 22nd, which will be on the weekend before this comes out, is our 1 year anniversary of the podcast, which is crazy because it actually feels like it's been longer.
Yeah. I was going to say that. It's like, only 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah, but it's been an awesome year and you guys have been the biggest part of that. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a great year too. Like we had that big break in between seasons and when we were renovating the house and so forth. But it's been a year of, opportunities for us to go through Reddits and learn from other people's experiences and journeys. We've had you guys write in and we've been learning from your experiences and journeys. We've had guest speakers. We've had our deep dives in our relationship, mainly on Patreon and on the regular episodes as well. But it's been a lot in that year, which has been absolutely amazing. And I think that's why it's so weird. It's only a year.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was thinking back even to some of the segments that we've had and finished. So we had the tea time segment, which I ran out of steam making tea and also editing. We had our ChatGPT outros that we would do and all those little like
random
things, the check-in jar.
Yeah, that's right. The chat jar.
That's right.
Yeah.
The would you rather.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. So actually on that, if we've missed something and there's something you want us to bring back, let us know.
Yeah. Because we've been guessing this whole year, which is the other cool thing about being into year two now is that we've got a year that we've now kind of experimented throughout that year to see what's working best, and now we're into season 2 and year 2 of the podcast, and that's really exciting because we've got some information behind us. So we've had over the last year over 10,000 listens, which is wild,
crazy.
We've had nearly 24,000 followers across our platforms, which is also wild. We've had more than 200,000 views on our content just in YouTube. And that's not even TikTok because we had 3.5 million on that one video. But over 200,000 views on YouTube and 1,300 hours of watch time, which is crazy. Yeah,
and then you did the maths as well. So that's 54 days of people watching our faces.
Full days of people just watching, not talking about the other stuff, but just watching, So there you go.
Which is mind-blowing.
World, you are welcome.
You are so welcome.
For that wasted 54 days of people's lives. Not wasted, but it's wild. So it was nice to look through those statistics, the analytics, and just have a look at what's actually like happened. But the most important and impactful part for us has just been the community and the conversations that it's led to, the feedback we've had, and most important, the growth that we've had
absolutely
together, and that's why we do it. So it's huge. It started just as a way for us to have our own conversations. It started kind of as an extension of the conversations we were already having, and seeing how much it's resonated with the world has just been incredibly encouraging. So thank you for being here for our first year, guys.
Thank you. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yep. So today we thought, what better way of celebrating our 1 year anniversary of the podcast by diving in to some Reddit stories on the topic of how to stay connected in a relationship through the chaos of parenting, which is very relatable for us.
Yes, definitely where we are at.
Yep.
So we've got some interesting Reddit stories, and we're going to go about them in a little bit of a different way this episode, which I think will be really impactful. But also stay tuned for our reality corner at the end, because we are going to be pushing you to rethink how you're balancing your marriage with some really impactful challenges and reframing and future pacing. So make sure you stick around for that. All right, well, let's dive in.
Yeah, let's go.
Honey, we need to chat.
First story on Reddit is called Balancing Motherhood and Marriage. My husband and I fight all the time. It's mainly about housework and caring for our baby. I'm on maternity leave, but will be going back to work soon. He does no housework at the moment and tells me to chill out when I ask him to contribute. He often falls asleep after work or dodges looking after the baby, so I don't really get a break. He said if I don't do the housework as much, maybe I could relax a little more. He calls me highly strung. He does sometimes offer to help by looking after our baby for the day on a weekend every so often, like once every 2 months, so I can get a massage, etc. But what I would prefer is his help from the day-to-day so my stress levels don't build. We can't really communicate about it anymore as it ends up in a yelling match. He gets very angry for the most infuriating reasons. Today, he fell asleep on the couch. I went to go to bed and he woke up and told me off for leaving him there as it wasn't comfortable and rude. And even earlier today, when he got home, I asked if he could watch the baby as I didn't have a chance to have a shower. He told me to do it quickly and that he would prefer if I gave him notice before he got home if I needed him to look after the baby. He later apologized for this. I don't even know what my question is, but I'm really finding it hard to balance his mood swings with the day-to-day load of managing a household and looking after a baby. Anyone else have similar experiences? I've been in an emotionally abusive relationship before, and I'm not sure if this is one also. I can't identify it as I'm too close to the subject.
I actually, in my head, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had the Dad's Group crew here to hear what their opinions would be on that. Because straight away my mind goes to it's becoming a parent is so tiring. You know, it's very, very tiring. And we talk back about when, you know, you and I have reflected back when we were renovating the house and we were so tired, and our communication was one of the first things that dropped, like our ability to communicate well and to fight well and to argue well. Like that was the thing that dropped the quickest, I guess, and which was so ironic because we've been doing this podcast and everything else as well, right? Which also just shows that we're definitely in this growth period still. And so so hearing that, I'm like, all right, cool. They're tired, you know, like parenting is tiring, and you know. I was struggling yesterday, right? Like last night, you were asking me, you know, am I getting overwhelmed and so forth because I was just getting snappy with the kids. And for me, it wasn't the tiredness. It was tiredness definitely was a part of it, but my back's been sore. My lower back's been sore. And it's like this thing that it's not that the kids have been overly difficult on doing it or anything else like that, but I'm in a situation where I'm uncomfortable and it spikes my reaction. And again, like, can come back to this scenario here where tiredness creeps in, and their ability to communicate well has been dropped because of another circumstance. Yeah,
absolutely. There's lots of factors there. I think setting aside like him getting mad at her for not waking him up when he was asleep on the couch is an interesting thing. I think that's not really her responsibility.
Did he say he apologized for that after?
He did apologize for that after. Yeah. So he obviously realized that's not right.
Yeah.
But setting aside some of the, I guess, specifics for these people, because I have no idea, and I know she asks at the end, is this emotionally abusive? I've got no idea, and I can't speak into that because I don't know. There definitely are so many layers that go on in relationships, and I was thinking about how she does a lot of housework and he tells her to chill out, and that if she didn't do so much, she wouldn't be so stressed. So obviously his perspective of it is you're doing more than you need to.
Yeah.
And then her perspective of it is you're not doing anything, so now I have to do it all.
Yeah.
And so I think neither side of those things is wrong and neither side of those things is accurate. So like him saying just don't do so much and you wouldn't be so stressed is probably not true. She probably still would be stressed, and probably he doesn't understand, because he's not doing the work, what needs to be done to keep the house going.
Yeah, and I think you just pinpointed on a
pinpoint,
a good point. There was that, you know, if you didn't do as much, you'll be less stressed. Well, she might be stressed because of the mess. You know what I mean? Like, so different people have those different triggers there. It's like, well, actually, I need a clean house. Like, I feel, you and I have had this conversation before when you had more kids at home. We got a lot of our kids in school now, but when you had more kids at home, you would say things like, when the bin is full, if the bin hasn't been emptied, the whole house feels like a mess, or the dishes aren't done, the whole house is a mess. So it's like this whole feeling thing for you as well. You couldn't relax as much.
It's super overwhelming.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was, that was really great for me to be like, cool, well, I need to prioritize the bins. And I don't do it perfectly, but it's just that thing for me to be like, all right, cool, the bins and dishes are a big help for you. If I can do the bins and the dishes, that's a big help for you. I have responsibility in the house as well, but just in regards to your relaxing and you being able to switch off. So, it's not as easy for him to say, don't do as much and you won't be as stressed. That's not necessarily true.
And I think as well, I have also been the person who doesn't do as much. And so I really wrestle with that. And sometimes I can't even really think of a specific scenario, but I know this feeling of being like, it doesn't need to be done. And now I feel guilty that I'm not doing it, but you've chosen to do, this isn't even necessarily you. It could be when I was growing up too. Like you've chosen, this is the task you want to do. I don't think it needs to be done right now. And I now feel guilty, which is also a self-inflicted guilt. But unfortunately, self-inflicted guilt often gets like projected back. Because even though, you know, the person might not be complaining, you still react out of guilt. And then often it's a defensiveness. It's just a spiral, basically, is what I'm trying to explain. Yeah. But I do remember the feeling of like, I'm not wired this way, or I don't see it, or I don't have this like internal motivation, or I haven't kind of tapped into whatever that is that some people have, where they just can maintain their house really well. And so then I don't get it. And I also then feel guilty on top of that. And it's a really interesting dynamic, because I find it, at least, really paralyzing. I find it really, like, instead of it being like a motivation to then go do stuff. And we've spoken about this a lot across the board. Like Blair he's really like, we need to do this. And that kind of motivation, it motivates him to do it. So he'll be like, oh, we really should save more money, or oh, we really should eat more healthy. And that's the thing that then he's like, yeah, I'm going to eat more healthy. Whereas when I'm like, oh, I really should do this thing, it really like just shuts me down. If I'm like, yeah, I really should be saving more money, and I get anxious about it, like switches from just a motivation to an anxiety, it shuts me down. Really, like, it's taken a while for me to understand that. But instead I could be like, I want my house to look this way. If I reframe it to be like what I want rather than I need to do this thing, that's what I find motivating, which isn't everybody. So I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if, but I wonder if he knows how little he does. If he knows how much she does and how little he does, and he's just stuck in this spiral of like, I feel like a horrible person because I'm doing nothing. And even this like sleep thing, like he apologized for it. I feel like a horrible person because I'm doing nothing and I'm reacting out of it. And he's just stuck in this like wheel spinning cycle. Yeah. And doesn't know how to do stuff.
Yeah, well, two things to that. Like, so you know, a big part of what you just shared then was then also helping me to know how to talk to you about it, right? So for me to be like, yeah, okay, we need to save money, we need to do that, it shuts you down. There's a point where it's like, cool, well, what gets me going? And that's the deciding and doing something about it. But if I want you on that journey too, I can't just do that. I have to also, approach you in a way that's not going to make you shut down. So that's a growth point there. Secondly, as well, like what you just said, then you mentioned about, you don't know what his deal is. Like he might be feeling guilty. He's not doing anything around the house. Again, we're only getting one side to this story. I remember, I think it was last week or the week before, there was this conversation that we were reading out about how a mum was saying, like, you don't do anything around the house. And from his perspective, he's like, well, I do a lot around the house. I do external, like, I like the building stuff. I do the lawns, the bins. Like, he does certain things around the house. And so it's, again, we just got to be careful on our lens of him. We don't know the complete story. So we don't know the other things that he does. What this story shows me, though, is that she could possibly be feeling overwhelmed with the chores that she is doing, and as well just feeling that disconnect with that team element to the parenting and the chores inside and stuff like that too. So for a lot of guys, it's I don't know what they want, it's like, I want you to do more. Okay, I'm doing more. I'm going to go mow the lawns. I'm going to do, I'm going to take the dog for a walk. and it's like, oh no, you're missing the point. That she's not saying do more in general. It's like, come help me with this specific thing.
Take things from me.
Exactly right. And sometimes that's not communicated clearly. It's the communication is do more. The guy receives that, do more. Got it. I'll do more. But it's not meeting the person where they're at, the mum where they're at, or the, whatever else, and vice versa too, right? You see that both sides. I come from the perspective a lot from the dad side of thing and the male side of thing because of the work that I'm in, and a lot of the conversations that I have with dads of that. I don't know what she wants. She says, I do more, and then we're back in this fight. I'm like, I don't know what to do from here. And we've even had guys write in and say, like, a topic that they want to know more about is, how does my partner think? there's this whole unspoken part of a relationship. And like, I just want to know what she's thinking so I can actually do what she's wanting me to do, like to fill that gap that she might have. It's just like frustration that's boiling too, which also could be feeding into their arguments and stuff as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. To be fair to her, I think she does mention in the story that she's tried to communicate about this and that it ends up in fights.
Yeah.
So, but again, I 100% agree. I think there is a miscommunication. I think there sounds like there is a miscommunication. What else it sounds like is mismatched expectations about what will be done.
Yeah.
And as we've mentioned so many times, and as applies to almost every story, how you're raised will really impact this. And so you'll come into a relationship with an idea, even when we spoke about these things, like we went through premarital counseling and we spoke about these things and identified them, and we were working with a counselor as well. And so we had that foundation, and we still have things that we bring in without even realizing as expectations and project onto the situation. And I think this is a super common story.
Yeah.
I think this is, again, removing their specifics. I don't know anything else that plays into her question about the emotionally abusive stuff. But I think it's a really common story to have this kind of miscommunication around what is going to be done, what you need. She might be saying she needs more help and he might not understand what that means. Maybe they haven't gotten super clear. But I think the curiosity element, coming at this with curiosity, trying to have these conversations as well. If she has been raising this and it's not going anywhere, saying it in the moment, be like, can you help me? Or like being like, you haven't done anything. Can you do this? Like, that's probably not going to be the most constructive way if that's how she's gone about them. But having a conversation removed from this, maybe even having a conversation, if you can, removed from the baby. Like you're not in the middle of caring for the baby. Maybe the baby's asleep or you've got babysitters, and having a date night or a check-in night or something, and being able to have this conversation saying, I'm really overwhelmed by the house stuff. I want to know what's going on. Like, can you help me with this stuff? And then if it's, if you're feeling like there's still some resistance there, being curious, like what's going on for you? Like how is this playing out for you?
Yeah, because like even with that, and going back to the story you mentioned earlier about how, I've approached you before about we need to save now, and it shuts you down, and you're like, you just get overwhelmed with the directness of it. I
get overwhelmed by it. I'll be like, oh my gosh, we're really in a bad place. We've got to do this thing, and I don't want to do this thing.
Yeah. And we're not in a bad place. It's just like my approach to it is like, well, I don't want to be in a bad place. I want to be moving forward. So it's like, all right, cool. We need to do this now. This is what we need to do. And I'm very like direct and to the point with it, which doesn't help you. So we got to the point where we had to talk through that, and it wasn't just a matter of like, all right, now we need to do savings, and we have to, the point wasn't about the objective that I was trying to achieve. It was really about, all right, cool. Again, the big thing that we got from our over the years, over the relationship, is attitude of curiosity. We've really tried to implement that. So it's being curious about, okay, why are you shutting down right now? Saving is a good thing. Why can't this be a good thing? Why is this now an issue? Well, it's not about saving. Like, that's not the issue. It's about the way that I'm processing it, about the way that you're receiving it. And we still struggle with that. Like 2 weeks ago, we had this conversation, or a week ago, it's something that we're continually building on. But that's where we keep coming back to is like, all right, cool. That's the issue. Cool. Let's talk about that. But then what's happening here in the conversation as well, was we're addressing two things when we bring that stuff up.
And we've even had times where, so we've had the conversation, we've explored this and figured it out. And then when it plays out in little moments, we've had times where I'll be like, it just really shuts me down when you talk like that. And then you've been like, yeah, but I need to be able to talk like that. And it's really relevant, because just because you have these really intentional conversations about things does not mean that every time you're ever going to talk about that topic, you have to be like, okay, we've got the babysitter and I'm sitting down and I'm just going to be curious. Like, that's not real. You're not going to live that way all the time. It's about, we've recognized there's something in how this dynamic plays out that just triggers. And so then we've gone and been intentional independently to figure out what's going on, and then also worked on it together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean the trigger's gone. The trigger's going to happen, but it's because we've got that exploration we've done together. It's good for me because I can be like, why am I so put off by how you've just said that? And then I can be like, I'm shutting down because of this. And then I can even say that to you, I really shut down when you talk like that. But also for you to say, this is how I talk and this is how I'm motivated.
It's how I process.
It's how you process.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a verbal processor. And so for me, it's like, all right, I'm going through a process right now. I can see I could see a future where we're struggling financially. I've now pictured that in my head. I can now see a way forward. And I've got to process this journey. It's like, now it's out of my head. There's no stress there because I've now processed it. I'm done. That's good. And that's like going back to what you're saying is that's the teamwork. It's like, well, I need to process. Like I need to process. Like otherwise I'm going to freak out every time I have a thought. I'm like, I can't talk about this. Like, why can't I talk about this?
Yeah.
You know? But I need to do the process, but then check in. How are you with that now process?
And giving us grace that we're going to be doing this in amongst all the chaos of life. And it's just going to come out the way it comes out. And every time we work on it is going to be better. But it helps inform us and it helps inform our partners and it helps make sense of things that seem confusing. And to bring that back to this story, she seems at a loss and we don't know what's going on for him because we haven't heard from him. But he also seems like he's acting out of something, whether it's whatever it is. He's acting out of something because he's getting frustrated. So there's something that's hooked there. And I think that they need to unpick that independently. Potentially she needs to like approach it. Maybe he doesn't have that understanding. Maybe they haven't had that conversation, but approach it intentionally and looking in at what's going on for themselves and being curious about what's going on for the other person, at least just to build that foundation. So going forward, when they have these conversations, they've got that conversation where they've worked through it before and it's not been in the heat of the moment and it's not been reactionary. It's been like a intentional conversation. And then, like we've said, and I just want to keep repeating this because I think it's important. We don't know their dynamics, and I'm not going to speak into the emotionally abusive part of that question because it's not something that we've got any context for.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, this is where things are going to get a bit different to what we normally do. When looking into the parenting space on Reddit, the questions around parenting on Reddit, I realized that a lot of them were just like moments of people being like, I need help. And then it's the comments that actually filled out the stories or filled out the purpose of the post. Whereas, a lot of our other topics, they tell a story and then they try to get like an opinion on it. And so I thought instead of just telling someone's story and then us chatting about it, what if we look at some of the comments and the responses that people have gotten to these questions that they've put out into Reddit and get some value from there?
Nice.
So that's what this is going to be.
Hey guys, we hope you are finding today's episode insightful and helpful. If you're looking for more resources on strengthening your relationship, visit our website. We offer a range of blogs, free resources, and you can join our email list for regular updates and exclusive content. Head over to honeymeetochat.com to explore more. Back to the episode.
So this post is titled, "For those who maintained a happy marriage while raising kids, what did you do right?" And the person says, I've seen it discussed a lot on here that evidence indicates that raising kids negatively impacts marital satisfaction. And this seems pretty accurate among those who comment. For those who felt that raising kids did not have a negative impact or had minimal negative impact that simply comes with less quality time together, having a little human dependent on you 24/7, what do you think helped you with this? What did you learn to do or to not do that kept your marital satisfaction high? So the first comment that had a lot of, they call them upvotes, just to educate us on how Reddit works. I don't really even know how Reddit works, but I know they're upvotes. The first comment was, one thing helped a lot. You hear a lot of parents say their kids are their lives, but no, we love our children who are adults now, but we made our relationship the top priority. If we had a bad marriage, how can we set an example for our children about healthy relationships? We maintained a healthy sex life as well, along with plenty of hugs, kisses, and general affection. We did go on dates regularly, and we never let a day pass without telling each other how much we love them. We always communicated and put aside an hour a day, usually at bedtime, to just spend with each other and talk. And we're both terribly happy. So that was a very popular comment.
I think that's good too. Like we've had this conversation as well, is like the kids, our lives can't revolve or change for the kids.
Well,
that's
they can
right.
change.
So yeah, I was going to say that doesn't sound right because
they can't revolve around the kids. Our relationship can't revolve around the kids.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had to, and that's where again when we first had kids, when we had our first kid, we decided from the very beginning, like date nights are so important for us. And that's why I think even, from the beginning, going through COVID and all that sort of stuff, that's why we really put in so much focus on that, or even at the stay home date nights, because that was so important, especially going through COVID, where it was just like, man, our opportunity for out of the house activities was gone. And so the home was just home. There was no specialness to it. So making that special was really important based off this conversation that we're reading now.
Yeah, exactly. So the second comment, so that exact topic is going to play out through all of these comments as well, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, there's like thousands of comments. I did not copy them all. I just took the top ones. And the second comment I'll read out is, I'm only 1 week postpartum with our first, but we've had lots of discussions around this prior to birth. We are people first. We are a couple first. If we weren't a couple and our relationship didn't exist, neither would our baby girl. We're one and done, which I imagine will help, meaning they'll only have one kid, which I imagine will help, and have talked about what happens when she moves out. We can't only have her to talk about for the next 18 years, because then what? We get to 18, our baby girl moves out, and we have nothing left to talk about or do together, and I don't like that idea. And then someone responded, I think it was actually the first commenter responded to this and said, that is a very healthy way to think about it. We are retired now, and both of our children are adults with partners of their own and their lives of their own. We are spending our time now traveling together and just enjoying what we worked so hard for all those years. And because we did make our relationship the top priority, we are stronger and an awesome team now. I love spending time with her. We are just so comfortable together that we can communicate almost without words a lot of the time. And then someone else responded saying this right here, our son's needs come first, but our marriage is very close second. We prioritize taking time to just be with each other, whether that is a trip away with the grandma watching the kids or just take out after the kids in bed. We are affectionate with each other and generally just love being around each other. The other thing is having each other's backs when it comes to parenting decisions. Sometimes you need to make a snap decision and you need to support each other, and you need to support each other in that in front of the kids. Another person responded to that saying, I'm curious, does this apply when your spouse wants to do certain things with the kids, like letting them cry it out because they don't want to get up at night, doesn't want to sign up for sports because they don't want to do pickups, doesn't want to cook healthy meals every day and frequently does takeouts or frozen food? Other parenting decisions based on personal comfort. Do you prioritize the partner's preferences or the good of the children? I don't have kids, but this is something that I've thought about. If I do have kids, it's so funny. Reddit is hilarious like this. If I do have kids, what happens if and when the good of the child butts up against the preference of my spouse? Certainly choosing someone with similar values is important, but there will always be some level of difference. And then the person responded,
just with that really quickly, like I think this is funny that person's gone on this whole thing and it's like, I don't have any kids. But I think in that scenario, it's just like, well, you don't just do everything that your spouse wants to do. That's not what we're saying. That's a whole separate conversation about, well, you guys work out what you decide together the things you're going to compromise and all that sort of stuff. You don't just say like, oh, my spouse doesn't want to, that's it. And that's the decision ongoing. That's part of the conversation. Yeah. And that's part of the developing the team as parents. Yeah.
And I think that they're right. You wouldn't normally end up in a relationship with someone with drastically different values.
You might.
You will have differences. Right? Yeah. But I think once you're at that point of having children, for maybe not for everybody, tend to be on the same page about enough things, but you will have differences. Yeah. And that's where you do navigate that. And it is that conversation. And no, it's not just about my partner doesn't want to do this stuff, so we just don't. It's a conversation. So someone wrote back and said, I think you have to look at each decision as something that will affect the whole family, like the sleep thing. If the parents are at the end of their rope with sleep deprivation, with sleep deprivation, that is also harmful to the baby. Risk of car accident goes way up. They have less energy for playing and talking to the baby during the day, less patience. They might struggle at work, etc. Maybe the solution is parents taking shifts with nighttime care. Maybe the solution is co-sleeping. Maybe it's sleep training. But if your partner is looking at some kid-related task and saying, I can't do that, it's too much, that needs to be taken seriously. Burned out, resentful, overstressed parents are also not good for kids. Of course, if it's just, I could do that, but I don't want to, that's something different. You do need to feel like your spouse is just as invested in parenting as you are, and that they have similar priorities. I think that's really good too. Like the story we've just spoken about, it looks like he's just doing nothing.
Yeah.
And as we just discussed, I don't think that's usually the situation. I think there's often a lot of stuff just going under. Not always, but often. So when you do have these differences in parenting, and we have had these differences in parenting, not these ones necessarily, some of them, but not all of them. And I think when you do have them, it's not just the person's deciding, no, I don't want to do healthy food. I want to do takeout. That would never be just their random decision as a parenting style. What would be sitting behind something like that is, how were they raised? Where's their mental health at? What's their priorities? Do they understand healthy food? Like there's so many things that sit behind that. So the curiosity and the conversation is really important, because you're not meant to just be navigating a partner saying, I don't want to do that because of this. You are navigating a person with experiences and that have shaped who they are, now playing out in their parenting, and they're your partner that you love. So you're trying to figure out how to work on that together. And then the last comment was, we're still in the thick of it. 3 kids, 6, 4, and 3 months. But here's what works for us. Don't take things personally. Be quick to forgive. Keep your sense of humor. Be intentional about how you spend your time. Make time for each other, even if it's just after the kids go to bed. It was interesting to watch the put your partner first conversation play out. A lot of people commented back on that and was like, yes, this, people are so scared of this. So one of the responses was, yeah, that's right. Our son's needs come first, but our marriage is a very close second. And a person responded and said, this is where the issue comes in. You're hearing neglect your child's needs and put your spouse first. And that is not what's being said. And then at the end, they said, kids should not only see a healthy relationship between parents, but they should also experience a healthy relationship between parents and child. Meeting your child's needs should not mean neglecting your spouse's needs, but putting your spouse's needs first doesn't mean neglecting your children, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction, because I do think a lot of parents fall into this trap where they're like, we have kids, they're our priority. And it's not that they're not your priority. It's just that if they're your priority over your relationship, the relationship being not a priority will erode underneath all of it. And no, it's not about like, put your spouse's needs first. So don't feed your children and don't change their nappies. They're like, anything that's for their safety or their well-being, you're now they're dependent on you. So you're now responsible for that. But you're meant to be doing that as a team. And I do think there's something missed across the board with parenting where they think, oh, I have to put my kids first and then my partner second. And I think that tiny little adjustment actually really makes a really big difference.
Something that comes into my mind too, and I've always wondered this, parents that co-sleep with their kids, right? And we've had our kids sleep in our bed and stuff like that, but they always go to their bed first, right? And this isn't a diss on it. This is just a not understanding part. Like parents that sleep with their kids like 4 years old, sort of older, right?
Every
so this
night,
isn't just baby. Yeah. This is just where the kid sleeps, is in their bed with them. And in my head, I'm like, where do you guys get the chance to be intimate? Like, how does that even look in that circumstance? Because that's so important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, your child in that relationship, because I know the focus is the relationship, really building the relationship with the child, but where is that time? And that's a genuine question. Just maybe they're like, cool, we'll go to the couch. I don't know. Like, or what does that look like? Because that's what goes in my head.
I think that's a good example, because co-sleeping, which we really like, when we've had our newborns, they've been in our bed for at least the last 2 have been in our bed consistently for months. And then we'll get to the point where we're like, we need space. Like we can't have them in the bed. And then the same thing with the room. Like we've been pretty quick to move our kids out of our room when they're babies, like around, I don't know, a couple months old, maybe even. Yeah. Except for the last one.
Yeah.
And then that was different. Yeah. And but even that, like we were like, you could feel that we needed him out of the room. Like it was just like, we need that space. We can't be constantly, our whole routine is around, don't wake the sleeping baby in our space and that kind of thing. But I think the topic itself is not what dictates whether you're prioritizing your relationship or not. So co-sleeping, yeah, it does add confusion, like add complications to that. And I have the same question, like, where does that happen? And I do know some families who their whole family is in the bed with them, with all their children for a long time. And part of me loves that. Like, I love like that you could have them there and you could just all cuddle and sleep together. But exactly where does your time alone come in? And
not saying it doesn't happen. Like, I was very, very clear on that.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is like the actual topic itself isn't what dictates that. It does add its own complications, but it comes down to how you're navigating that. So you could still be prioritizing your relationship because you've made something work, like you said, the couch or something like that. Whatever it is that you've got in place that works with that, as long as the decision you're making isn't at the detriment to your relationship. And when I say detriment to, I want to be clear because, you know, especially right after you have a kid, for example, you're not supposed to do anything for 6 weeks. And that's because your body's healing. That doesn't mean that's at the detriment of your marriage. And so that's an example of like, we got to be careful with how we define those things. What is the detriment? But I think, you know, I think everyone knows at their core what's at the detriment of their relationship. And
it's not a once-off thing too. Like, so when you're saying the detriment of your relationship, we've said that, you've just said that word like 20 times in 1 minute. Detriment. But it's like, it's this ongoing thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of probably more your measuring stick rather than, oh, we didn't do it this time, or we can't do it for 6 weweeks. Now our relationship's going to be messed up. It's not that. It's like this, that's more about patterns.
The culture. It's the focus. Yeah, you can find yourself years, and we've done this. We've talked about it on episodes. Found ourselves years down the track and being like, oh, hang on, we really need to readjust. We're not like prioritizing. We've become just friends and just existing rather than. We've
gone into the friend zone too much.
But anyway, it's an interesting distinction. All right, let's move on to the last post/comments section. This one is, different parenting styles really may kill my marriage. What do I do? My husband and I usually get along great. We have a lot in common and support each other in many ways. My son is almost 3 and has always been a normal toddler, testing boundaries, impulse control issues, not listening, biting, hitting. Truly, it's in the realm of normal. It's frustrating and hard. I know it is. I deal with the burnout of it. My husband's days off have become horrible. I hate when he's home. He's making my son melt down constantly. It's every 10 minutes, I feel. He's always saying no, being disrespectful, saying things disrespectfully, at times being aggressive, like picking him up too hard or grabbing his arm to stop him from throwing. He tells my son not to throw and then throws things when he's mad. He tells my son not to snatch, but then snatches from him. I always call him out, usually not in front of our son. I correct him because our son deserves better. My husband tries to control him, tries to limit him, and is too harsh on him, in my opinion. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be around him and my son together because it's too stressful. He says he doesn't know how to deal with our son's emotions. I give him books and advice and he uses none of it. I'm afraid this is going to kill our marriage. Does anyone have any advice?
This is such
an intense conversation. Yeah. So I'll read the comments first because this is the reason I included the story. So the comment that I've popped here is, I was also this dad. Whenever I heard a child scream, yell, tantrum, it set something off in me, and the need to get the child to stop was incredibly strong and usually presented negatively, like yelling at the child, removing them, shouting stop, etc. It wasn't healthy, but I didn't realize it as I'd never been around young children up until my own, and those were my main memories of my father before he left at age 6 or 7. I would say your partner needs to understand his own emotions and realize that they will be mirrored in your child for the rest of their lives if things are not resolved. What worked for me when I could feel I was about to blow was not reacting instantly, as my instant reaction is always negative. But breathe seriously sounds silly, but it works. Think about 5 seconds and find an appropriate logical reaction beyond wanting to Homer Simpson them around the throat. That's such a descriptive.
Yeah.
If he has to leave the room for 30 seconds to calm and reassess, that's fine too. And there was another comment here too. Another person said, I was and am this dad. The issue isn't that he doesn't know how to deal with your son's emotions. The issue is he doesn't know how to deal with his own emotions. He needs to pick his battles, reinforce positive actions, give the son options, not threaten, recognize when he's going to lose control, and walk away when he's about to lose his cool, and repeat it. And then someone says, the last part of this is so important, recognizing when you're going to lose it and walking away. Repeat and get better. You're the adult and you've had a lifetime to get your own emotions. They're a child with big feelings. Basically what the conversation unfolded in was it's actually about the parents' emotional understanding of themselves. And it's really hard when you're navigating someone else's. So she's navigating her husband's emotional reactions and his responses. But it's, again, that conversation about curiosity.
Yeah, and not that I disagree with any of those comments. It's just not as easy as those comments make it sound to be, you know. And I've mentioned before, this is a lot of the line of work that I work revolves around, right? Is the fact that we're changing a culture in fatherhood for the support dads get, you know, through the health system when baby's born and after birth and all this sort of stuff. a big thing that we find, though, is it's a culture that we have adopted from what we've seen, right? So that culture is changing, but to change a culture takes a long time. And so for a lot of these people, it's like, oh, just take a breath, just do this, just do that. It's not as easy as just do the thing. And this is coming from experience too, right? Like, I struggle with patience. I've struggled with anger. There's been serious moments. I remember one weekend you actually took the kids away because I just wasn't coping with like being overwhelmed. I just wasn't coping. I was just dealing with the situation so poorly. And it's just it's an ongoing challenging growth. What I don't like about this story is that it seems like from one side that he's not willing or not being intentional with what he's working on. Yeah. That I don't believe there's any excuse for. And I think like I said, I'm not disagreeing with any of the comments. I just think it's like, cool, it's not now to start breathing and it's going to be fixed. It's like, no, this is actually going to be a journey for this guy. And it's such a common journey for a lot of guys to break free from that experience that they've experienced and to realize this doesn't have to be their reality and there is something that they can do. Breathing definitely helps. Taking a step away definitely helps. There's all these things that definitely help. But for that to be the new norm of their instant reaction is going to be time.
It's going to take time.
Time, intentionality. And so what we don't see again, like from this story, is him saying like, yeah, I want to do these things. The mum is saying, I'm trying to help him. I'm trying to support him, which is fantastic. What we need to see is that he's willing to actually do those things too. It's never an excuse. Like we never, ever excuse behavior, but we normalize the struggle, and that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely, this is another one of the examples where we set aside their specific relationship because I don't know where he's at in terms of being willing to work on it. It does sound like he's not. But what's interesting is I loved how many people were responding to them in the comments saying, this was me, like I was this dad. And I think it's, as we've said, our parenting styles, what we were raised in or what we experienced as kids really impacts how we navigate parenting. Yeah. And a lot of those people were saying, yeah, this is what I saw in my parents or in my father, and that's just what I projected out there. She says different parenting styles, and people are like, it's not actually different parenting styles. He's not healthy. He has not had work. He's not done work on his experience and his trauma. And so he's coming out of an unhealthy way, and it's actually his emotions that he's navigating. It's not the child's emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think this is why things like therapy is so important, being able to work through those things, having that curiosity about what their experience was, but also making it really clear. Like there have been times where I remember one time I said to you, I think you're scaring the kids. Like I think you're scaring them. And you didn't realize that.
No.
And so as much as that, just to be really clear, Blair was nothing like this story. I just need to say that because I don't want people thinking that. But just like with kind of the intense reactions,
the volume of my voice,
which is just a natural thing as well. You don't even realize how you're coming across. And I've done the same with the kids. Sometimes I have no idea how I'm coming across. All I know is I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated, I'm frustrated, I'm tired. I've this is not me, but I could have seen kids were to be silent and be present growing up. And so then I'm like, my kid's not silent and present, so I'm reacting like this. And that's everything that comes into play when you're a parent. And it sounds like she's been very intentional with like learning about parenting, looking into books and resources and understanding why things aren't meant to be done that way or why it's more healthy to do it a different way. So potentially she's really put that effort in regardless of how she was raised, but she's in a place where she's understanding that and it's removed from her emotions. I don't think he's in that place. And so having really important conversations, being firm with it, saying this is actually not okay to keep going. Like, I think you're scaring him, or I think this is going to be damaging and we need to do something about it. But also curiosity and gentleness around where he's coming from and why he reacts this way, and encouraging getting extra support, I think is really important because these things do sit there. And I think there's a whole group of people that don't necessarily, they'll be like, yeah, I had horrible things happen, but it's whatever. Like I've moved on. And they don't necessarily acknowledge that what has happened to you has shaped how you think and react and feel. And it's going to have long-term impacts. And so you might be surviving and fine. Like you might feel okay on the surface, but really there's a lot of stuff that has been impacted by experiences you've had growing up or whatever. And there is so much benefit to be done, by exploring those things and looking into, especially therapy, especially if it's something like this. I feel like that could be really helpful. And Dad's group is really helpful. That's what Blair, the organization Blair works for.
I was going to say as well, if you are a dad or even a mum that is struggling with this sort of stuff, like please get in contact. We have support available for you, free support. So please get in contact with us. Again, go to honeyweneedtochat.com. You can get in contact there and we'd love to refer you on. So again, the big thing here is it's one thing to identify your struggle, which is great. Then the next step is do something about it. 1 in 10 dads struggle with postnatal depression, which is a stat that a lot of dads people don't even know that dads can get postnatal depression. They do. 56% of dads don't do anything about it. So this is really huge stats, man. This is a lot of dads that are struggling with postnatal depression and don't do anything about it. So get in contact. Don't be one of those stats. Come and do something about it. Yeah.
That's good. All right, well, we're going to move into the reality check corner for this episode. This is where we want to make these episodes something that can be applied to your life right now and your relationship right now, something that can challenge you in this moment and actually be practical, not just something you've listened to. So if you're up to the challenge, join us. First one is a reflection prompt, and it's a little bit longer than normal, but I think that's important. So just have a think about what this reflection prompt that I'm going to read out. Where are you prioritizing your kids over your partner, and is there space to shift that? A lot of people believe that their kids should come first, but what if prioritizing your partner actually benefits everyone, including your kids? We're not talking about neglecting daily needs or safety. We're talking about making sure your relationship isn't running on leftovers. Ask yourself, are you modeling the kind of partnership you'd want your kids to have? And is there one small shift you could make this week to show your partner that they still matter? So that's just a little reflection prompt. I love those two questions, especially the first one. Are you modeling the kind of partnership you'd want your kids to have? That's a really good lens for a lot of stuff.
We've spoken about that quite a lot of, so for me, obviously being a guy, I have my boys very much in my mind in regards to how they treat women, how they present themselves, all this sort of stuff, like how they can be confident in their role as a man and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, I'm also very aware of my daughter being very aware of what good guys are and aren't, you know, and so helping those sorts of things. So being intentional. And it's like, I can speak at our kids all day long, but what they see is so much more powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So are you modeling the kind of partnership you'd want your kids to have? And is there one small shift you can make this week that might show your partner they still matter? So here's a connection challenge. This week, schedule a no kids allowed date night. It doesn't have to be extravagant. A simple dinner or a walk can work wonders. And I'll add to this that I didn't add to that earlier, at home date night. This week, challenge yourself. If you've got babysitters or you can leave your kids at home because they're old enough, awesome.
Get out.
Do that. If not, and you're like, but we don't have this resource, do an at-home date night. It can be ordering takeout. It can be making your own food after they've gone to bed, setting this space up nice. We've got so much stuff that we've already spoken about with the at-home date nights. Look through our socials if you want more suggestions. There's questions on our website in the free resources of 50 date night questions. So if you're like, I don't know what we'd even talk about, go through those. There's a check-in thing you can do there. It could be just a dinner. If you can't even do dinner because your kids are up too late and they just don't go to bed in time, do a hot chocolate or a dessert night or something like that. But I would challenge, if your partner is in the same place as you this week, everyone is able to make some time that is like a night or time set aside without the kids this week. So that's the challenge. Set that, schedule it now, figure out how you're going to do that and implement it this week. And the last part of our reality check corner is the future pace exercise. And this is where we're going to project a future and we're going to borrow from that future, that vision that we have, the clarity we can see and feel and taste, see and feel and experience by thinking about this future that we want. And we're going to see what we can borrow from that into today to help motivate us and refocus us. So you can close your eyes or you can just listen as I read out this future pace. Fast forward 15 years. The kids are busy, independent. The house is quiet. It's just you and your partner. What does the silence feel like? Is it warm, familiar, and connected? Or is it distant like two people who became great co-parents but forgot how to be partners? Now rewind to today. That future is being built right now. What is one small shift you can make today to keep your connection alive? And how can you invest in your relationship now so that you don't have to rebuild it later? Alrighty, guys.
Cool. That was a good one. Happy 1 year.
1 year.
Love it.
Remember, we're not about perfection. We're just about making intentional efforts.
Yeah.
So, and in parenting, it's just a whole range of layers and dynamic that come across and lie across your relationship. So it's just about being intentional in those spaces and figuring out where you can make little adjustments to reach the future that you want for your relationship. Thanks for being with us, guys. Make sure to check out the website, honeyweneedtochat.com, for any freebies, and we will chat to you later.
Good chat. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.